Hello there and welcome to my YouTube channel, Julia McNeil Crafts. So today I am going to make, well, I was going to say a canvas, but this is actually MDF. I've actually got two MDF pieces, a canvas and a cardboard, and I'm going to be making the same thing on all of them because I'm actually doing prep for a Hachanda show. So it's one of those makes though that when I'm on, oh, sorry, it's called the craft store now, that when I'm on the craft store it's going to be a case of here I've stuck this and here's it gessoed, and I'm going to have about 4 or 5 makes done, but I'm also going to have to scoot past some of the techniques really quickly. So I thought I would do it in real time here. So I have got, these are some buttons. These are from the Mad Hatches kit. So the Bobbin Flowers and the Sobot, all of those kits have got the oversized buttons in them. So I've taken some of the buttons from those kits and I'm going to have these as my starting point. And I'm going to stick these down. I'm sticking them down with gel medium because it gives me a permanent adhesion. So you can stick things down with your hot glue, but there is a risk if you do that you will end up having things ping off at a later point, just because your gel medium dries very brittly. Sorry, your glue gun dries brittle, and most things have movement, especially here we're working on MDF. If you think of your wood floors, you always have to leave a little bit of a gap between your the edge of your floor and your skirting boards, and that's to allow for expansion and contraction within the wood. So obviously we're working at it, plus we're abusing it by throwing lots of mediums at it, so there will be that sort of expanding and contracting going on in our project, and the gel medium will work with that, whereas your hot glue won't. I've also then just got my tin of buttons, and I'm literally just going to grab a whole load of them. I'm not going to overthink it because we will be sort of gessoing over the bulk of these, and I'm just wanting to build up a whole load of buttons, just to create lots of interest. And this is going to be the base layer for one of our girls, which I've got one of the stamp sets here, but there we go, that's one of them, and they've all got this button theme, so eventually one of the girls at the end will go on to this. But right now I'm just having a play and I'm getting this stuck down, so this will probably need to wait at least the full day, if not overnight. I mean, this is quite early, it's 10:30 in the morning, so I might get away with it at 9 o'clock at night that it's dry enough to gesso it, and then I'll be ready to do a bit more in the morning, but we'll just have to see how we go. So I'm just grabbing lots of buttons, I'm just going to layer lots of it up, and at the minute I'm just thinking about texture. As you can see, I'm not overthinking it, I'm not even concentrating on what I'm picking up, I'm just picking one up and sticking it down somewhere. So, and then we will see where we go from there. So this bit box is a treasure trove of, or this isn't a bit box, this button box is a treasure trove. So I think part of it, one of it was, you know, I don't know, everyone's grandmother seemed to have a bit box, not a bit box, why did I keep, it's because I'm normally referring to it, a button box. So I think my mum had one and she was going to throw it out. I'm like, no. And then some of them are craft buttons that have kind of come in various kits. I always save the buttons off, you know when you buy new clothes and there's buttons inside your, there's a little packet with a couple of buttons in, always save those. If I'm throwing clothes out that can't go to the charity shop, then I'll take the buttons off first. I try and, even if something isn't wearable, I do try and repurpose it as much as possible. I'm just going to see if I've got any bigger buttons just to come up here a little bit, yeah. So we've got all sorts. So what I might do is just pop you on fast forward as I continue to add the buttons. all dry now. I've left that overnight. I don't know why, but I've got a great big long paintbrush in it. Not paintbrush, paintbrush here. But that's all stuck, and as we can see, it's absolutely solid. So I am now just going to gesso over everything, and that is to give us a nice even surface when we start to colour it. So I'm kind of getting in all the nooks and crannies of this, scruffling on the pieces that have got a bit more detail in them, but getting a nice even coverage on all of this. And then this means when I go to colour it, we should get some nice effects. Right, so I'm going to get all of that covered. This will probably take maybe 3 coats. I'm using my 13 Arch Gesso, which is nice and thick. So there we go. And hopefully that will not take us too long. So what I will do is I'll do this one coat with you, just so that we get an idea of what we're doing, and then I'll do the other 3 coats. Because we've got all the different coloured buttons, I'm not quite sure how much effort that's going to take to neutralise it all. But normally when I do a mixed media project, I'm normally at least 3 coats anyway, so I'm going to imagine that we're going to be in that sort of ballpark for this. So as I said, I'm really just sort of trying to get right in with the bristles of my brush, lots of circular movements, and that's to make sure that we get every little bit covered. So it is going to look patchy at this stage, it's only the first coat, but once we've done a few coats we'll get that nice and bright and nice and even. As I said, because we've got the plastics of the buttons, we've got the MDF, and we've got a different type of wood for the little wooden buttons, so that's lots of different surfaces, and so to make sure when we do the colouring that it's nice and even, you would put gesso on it. Also opens up your ability to use different products on it. So for example, you can't use water-based products on a non-porous surface, which the plastic buttons are, but the fact that we're putting gesso on first it means we can use a water-based product if we want. I don't know what I'm going to use yet, I haven't quite decided. I'll decide that. See, I always find this when I'm creating, it's a very organic process. I sort of have, you know, in my head I wanted to create a mixed media piece with lots of buttons and then having one of my buttoned girls on it. That's the only thing that was in my head. The rest of it just sort of happens. So trust your creative process, you know, just go with the flow, enjoy it, experiment with the ideas as they come into your head, and yeah, that's it really. So I will leave that at that. I will do probably another 2 coats at least. I will let you know when I come back on how many coats it did actually take in the end, in case you want to do something similar. But yeah, I'll come back when we're all ready to colour up, and by that point it'll have a few coats on it and it should be nice and dry too. Okay, so that's my button plaque all gessoed. I wanted to use pale colours. This isn't necessarily the way I'd normally go about painting. I wanted to use pale colours because the way I've coloured the images are all really quite bright. And I looked through my stash and the only sort of pastel colours I've got are these really old Adirondack paint daubers, and the paint is really thick. We should still manage to get to use it though, so to be honest it's probably quite a good thing, because it means that I'm most likely going to use these up because they're dry and past it anyway. But this is also a lesson in why you should use your stash. We buy it for a reason. We buy it because we feel all inspired, and then we can tend to save it for good, which is not necessarily the best way forward. So yeah, oh, this one's slightly more, it's still quite thick, but yeah, these are quite thick. I think by the time I've finished my project today, they will probably be getting binned because they're definitely sort of, yeah, past their day. Look, that's like great big thick globules. But yeah, we'll manage. We'll put it down, and I'll probably put a bit of gesso on with it as well. So yeah, I think it's made me realise that I need to invest in some pastel colours. I mean, you can really easily make pastel colours. I've got a lot, and that's probably why I've never really bought any, because I tend to veer towards bright colours more than pastel colours naturally. And you can make your pastel colours. If you can hear big noise, it's because my husband's currently working on the studio, so there's all sorts of power tools going on in the garden. Which, despite the fact I'm at the front of the house and he's at the back of the house, it's still sort of coming through. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, you can make pastel colours out of your bright colours by just adding white, but my daughter has managed to go through all of my white paint. So I need to actually order some white paint. So while I'm at it, I might have a little look and order some pastel paints too. So I'll probably have a little shop on the Be Crafty website later on today, I think. That's normally, she sells the Dilutions paints at a very reasonable price, so I think I will most likely go there and do that. But the reason that I want this pale is I've coloured my girls up quite bright, and I'm thinking that this will help it to stand out. So yeah, this paint is definitely past its day. I think we'll manage to eke it out and make it work for today. So we can make it work. I could probably put a bit of water on my brush and get that moving a bit better as well. But I think we'll make it work for us today. But then that's, I think that's them had their day. So yeah, try your best. You can quite often reactivate paints. I mean, we're working. They're starting off a bit globby. To be honest, I'm working on a mixed media project. So if it does end up sort of staying more lumpy and bumpy than it should, I'm not bothered, because I think it'll all just sort of add to the texture and overall feel of a mixed media project. Half the time I'm sticking texture paste and things on there to create this sort of gritty effect, so I'm getting it for free. So it's all good. So I'm sort of just putting the various colours on and blending them together as they meet each other. They will sort of like change tones and things, but that's all good. Let's see, I wonder what this one's like. This one actually looks like it's got a bit more life than the others. Let's see. This is how it should be. See how runny and thin that is? That is how this paint should be. So this one can stay. This one's working as it should. There you go. And the other ones are like thick pastes. So yeah, so it's all good. So this one's aqua blue, so it's a different shade of blue. So what I'm going to do, I'll pop you on fast forward. I will continue painting this with the paints. Yeah, and that's about it really. I'm just trying to get coverage. I don't know that I'll give it a second coat. I'll see how I go, but yeah, I'll see you once I'm done. Waiting for that to dry, what I have done is I have pulled out, this is tissue paper that I use when I am spraying. I've got a bit of Dilutions spray on here, I think, and I think there's a bit of crackle on there as well. So this is kind of when I'm working and I'm trying to protect my desk, this all gets here and we end up with all sorts of lovely interestingness. So rather than waste this, it's really handy for using in a mixed media project. So I'm going to take my stamp. This is Stamp Lamentals 2. This is the one that's got my granny's handwriting on, and I'm going to stamp this in a few places. I think that might be my older ink pad, yeah. So I'm going to ink this up. As I say, I'm not worried about perfection here. I'm just wanting to add some details. So I'm going to stamp them over like so. And then I'm going to grab some of the button stamps. So let me have a little flick through what we've got here. So I think I'll maybe take, I've got this one here that's a little button flower. So I'm going to grab that and I'm just going to stamp this in a few different places randomly. I'm not overthinking it, I'm just stamping. If it ends up looking too uniform, we're not putting it down like this, so that's fine. I'm going to give that a little waft with the heat gun, I think, and then I'm just going to, she says looking for a heat gun, and then we'll add a bit of colour. I've been working on my Dawn and Julia Cree. I've got this gouache paint which is water reactive, so rather than waste it, let's just use it in this project. So the pinks will go quite well, and also the background of my project is all of those blues, so I definitely want to be going with contrasting colour. I'm not aiming for perfection here, I'm just getting a bit of colour onto those flowers. So let's go, it's bleeding out, we're not going to get perfection, it's tissue paper and watercolour. It's not going to, yeah, it's not going to be, you're not going to get an amazing professional result. So we're looking at embracing imperfection here. We're not looking at fine art. This is going to be a little bit of something just to add a bit of interest to our project. And then what I might do is just grab that, and I'm going to add a few flicks of that about, and different colours, and I'm just going to leave that to dry. Okay, so I have given the base here a little waft with the heat gun. We're now going to bring the texture out with a little bit of dry brushing, so I'm just trying to find a flat brush. I'm going to take a tiny bit of gesso. I'm actually going to thingy it into my lid, so I'm just going to pounce it a little bit because I really want what I've got to be light. I might need a little bit more than that. You're best to start light and build up if you're not sure, if you haven't done this technique before. So basically I have now got gesso about halfway, so I would maybe go a third to halfway, and I want to brush flat. Now by doing that I'm going to catch all the edges. I'm going quite fast. I also tend to hold my brush quite far back, so I've got a much looser hold. If you go in like that, you will end up going into the crevices, and you don't get the same effect. You end up sort of like painting. And what I'm not wanting to paint. Basically, I'm just wanting to catch the edges of things, and it just helps us. It's a bit too heavy, so you can see that's a bit too heavy. I just want to catch the edges, and this helps to pick up the detail. Also helps to create shades and tones and things like that, which is why I'm not going to stress about that button that was a bit too heavy, too much. So I'm just going to quickly go over all of that, and then we will use our tissue paper that we've just made to add a little bit of extra detail. And the tissue paper had those bright colours in it, so it's really going to pop against this subtle background, which was what I was going for, rather than everything being in there in your face, rather than going for like bright in the background and bright in the foreground. I wanted to sort of have contrasts within the project, so the fact we've gone really subtle, hopefully will look really good. We will wait and see what happens. Again, a bit heavy, you can tell, because if it starts coming on like looking like it's been painted, that's too heavy. But I mean, it's also to taste, you might like it like that. But I think knowing how to get the effect that you want, then you can make a choice as to whether you want that or not. I have to say, dry brushing, I tend to get impatient. I start off really well and then I end up loading my brush far too far. But yeah, that's all good. I think I'm happy with that. So it's just like now I can sort of see the writing within that button. I can see that there's a design in that. So a lot of these buttons had like individual designs and features, and that gets lost through the gessoing and painting process. But doing this, it sort of brings it back again. So that's that. Now what I'm going to do is pull in my tissue paper that we made. So you could do this on handmade papers, rice papers, anything that you have. I just thought I would do it with this because it would give a little bit more interest. I'm going to tear this. It is going to look all jaggedy, and that's fine, but that means it's going to blend into my piece a lot more. So I'm just going to take little bits of it, and I'm going to grab my transparent gesso. Now the reason that I'm going to do transparent gesso is because I know that I'll be wanting to do shadowing and things like that afterwards. But if I use my transparent gesso, it's strong enough to adhere the tissue paper. It also, and this is why I didn't stamp, because I can bring that right round the edges. There, I don't know if you can see that, but it's going right in. I'm managing to get it round the button. Whereas if I'd stamped, it would just have been, like, this was like the what do you call it? The fact that I had the Dina gloss sprays, it's meant that it's 2 layers, it stuck the 2 layers together, so I'm not going to get as subtle a look as that I maybe would have originally wanted. But I'm getting something. Tissue paper's breaking up there a bit again, but don't worry, it's all texture. And I'm going to stick that down like so. I'm just going to tear that. As I said, what's fabulous about this is we're getting that design going right around the corners, whereas if you were to try to do that with stamps, you would get it on the bits that are like predominant, but you wouldn't get it sort of going round the edges. As I said, don't worry about things folding up and lifting and bits and pieces like that. That just all adds texture and detail. So I've got a little bit there. And I'm just going to add it in various places. So a little bit of the transparent gesso down first. So your transparent gesso is not a glue as such, but it will adhere stuff like this, but especially this one. This is the Pretty Gets Gritty one, so it's actually got a slight tack to it at this stage, not when it's dry. I think sometimes, like with this one, I've sort of almost panicked and thought, oh no, have I used gel medium and not transparent gesso, because it almost has that feel. But it means for doing this sort of technique it's great, but it does dry with that sort of that matte finish and with the tooth. So the ability to then be able to, so I'm just being able to break that tissue paper down so that I'm still seeing the hole, but I'm also managing to get that pattern right in to that substrate right at the back. There's no way I'd have done that just using stamps. So I'm just going to take little bits and build that up. Like so. Right. Other bits, let's get a greeny bit. Oh, hang on. That's the one I've made for the telly box. We'll not rip into that one. We'll keep ripping into this one. Right, so let's get some of the blues and pinks. So again, the torn edge, it might feel messy at this stage, but if you have a cut edge, you will see that cut edge when you put it on your piece. Whereas a torn edge is just going to blend in absolutely beautifully. So, I get the transparent gesso down again, and then we're going to just blend this into the piece. And as I said, the fact fact that the tissue paper ends up so malleable, you can literally push it into the corners. If that was like normal paper, it wouldn't work so well. So it's just a fun way, rather than, I mean, you could actually, I could have stamped. I could have stamped and added texture paste before I started. There's lots of ways to build up a mixed media project. If you don't follow my channel, feel free to like maybe consider that, because I do cover lots of ways at different times. It depends where the mood takes me. And also with this particular piece, I'm also kind of trying to think about, I've got to try and demonstrate the actual products that I've got on the show. So I want to be sort of using the stamps and things that I've got on the show, rather than like stencils and things, which maybe I would naturally go to. But then this is also another example of like limiting your supply. So I'm even managing to get the groove. I'm beginning to see the text of that button come through just by continuing, just keep working it, keep working it. So I like that. As I said, we're getting lots of textures. What I maybe would do again is, once that's dry, we'll dry brush that again. Okay, now that is a bit too of a harsh ending for me, so I'm just going to grab another piece of that and sort of bring it off the button and into the project. So again, this is why I wanted that nice pale background, because we're adding that pop of colour, but that pop of colour is really popping because we have the contrast. Right, I think I'm going to have a little bit in the top corner. I think I'm maybe going to go with this, the blue and yellow bit just there. Oops. Sorry, I'm doing that off screen. I'm not tearing it overly effectively, but don't worry. Right, so slightly harder to tear tissue paper than the rice paper. It's definitely got a mind of its own. It's just going to do its own thing, and that's fine. You just have to let it work with it, not against it. Like, just work with the properties, whatever you're working with. Just kind of work with how they work for the properties of how they work, rather than trying to fight it, because it means you'll get cool effects. Right, so I just kind of want that flower peeping in on the corner, I think, and then the fact that that's similar colours to the rest of the project. I can, once I've got a bit of dampness on that, I'll be able to just tear that. Oops. So, there we go. That's my thumbs. I'm just brushing gently because I can tell my thumb's going to rip all that off. The joys. There we go. That was fun. Right. So we've got all that going on there, like so. There we go. I can always neaten that bit up at the back after. It's probably easier to do that when it's right. I like, again, this bit is a bit of a harsh line, so I'm going to actually take the blues again. I've got this little bit here, so I might sort of patch that into there just to soften this particular line. And I will have my characters and my embellishments going on as well, so we still have opportunities to change and adapt to how we want it. And doing this, I've now layered a blue piece over a pink piece. We're still seeing the pink through. We've added a bit of extra detail with the blue, and that's what's fun working with like a sort of semi-transparent layer like this. So it's like all your posh rice papers, things like that. That's pretty much what we've done, but we've used a mop-up. So we've protected our work. We've not wasted all the gorgeous spray, because especially with, like, these sprays aren't particularly cheap, but we've not wasted it because all the leftovers are now being used in a different way. And it's a cheap and cheerful way of getting the same effect as you would with a fancy rice paper that cost a little bit more. Okay, I think we're good. We've got 1, 2, 3. We've got it in threes. We've got it coming down the page. Let's see, let's just maybe take one. Oh, I'll take this pink bit. I've got a pink bit there. Go for that. We've got a bit of pink and a bit of yellow and a bit of blue. So I'm just wondering whether to pop that there. I'm loving the fact it's going around these buttons. I mean, I knew it would, but it's sort of going around them even better than expected, which is a pleasant surprise. So I am putting a little bit of gesso on underneath and a little bit on top. And I'm just letting that work its way around. So you will definitely need to do some dry gessoing again after this, but I will let that dry properly. Just going to ping that. I want it to rip slightly so that it goes right in the grooves. It will do, because it's wet. Tissue paper doesn't like being wet. So it will tear quite easily, and that's how you can get that to just pop in there. So that's that. I'll let that all dry and then I'll come back in a moment. Okay, so I've just wafted that dry with the old heat gun, and I am now going to get my gesso and do exactly the same as we did earlier. And I'm just going to, oop, far too heavy. I'm just going to sort of re-dry brush over some of these areas that we got the tissue paper, partly because we've got some new texture that we can highlight. So as the tissue paper was folding, as we were sticking it down, that's created beautiful elements of texture, and partly because the dry brushing that we did have that showed the features of the buttons has now disappeared in those particular areas. So I'm just doing it again. It's possibly one of those things that I could have waited and done it all at this stage, but to be honest I hadn't thought about it at the time, so it's fine, it's not a problem. Right, so we'll do that, and then just at the bottom, it's these little things that might feel a bit faffy, but I think they make a huge difference. And then once we've done that, I'm going to grab our bits and pieces that I have stamped and coloured, and we will attempt to put something together. So that's that all done. Now let me see, where is my little tab? Okay, so we've got various, I'm thinking her. I think she goes really well with the colours. Okay. So let's see, what else have we got? I'm having to I'll find the bits that I'm going to pull out the bits and pieces that go with this collection. So I've got some bits and bobs there. That's things that I've stamped and coloured in. I've still got more of the collection I could stamp and colour in, but that's what I've got in my box so far. So we'll work with what we've got. I'm also just going to take the Distress Oxide in Broken China, and I'm just going to ink around the edge of my girl, just in that she's easier to cut with that white border, but I kind of want her to blend into the project a bit more than she currently is. So this is a really easy tip if you're not a big fan of the white border, which I have to say I'm not, that you can very quickly and easily sort of get that look that you do like just by sort of inking that white to match the colour of whatever your background is. And it makes a big difference. So we've got her there. I think we're probably going to have to get her on a load of cardboard so that she sits as she should. And then I'm thinking that we could have a few florals. So I think we have a few little florals that we could have. Probably won't go overly crazy, to be honest, because I don't want to end up covering too much of what we've got going on, in all honesty. So we then could have, so if we've got that there, sort of like that, then we could maybe have some flowers over here just to tie it in. I don't know if I want a, no, I think, what? I'm not having a dangle? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Do you know, I actually think something like that, and keep it simple, because we've got the sentiment cute as a button, which we could have there, and then maybe have that little heart just like that. So I'll tell you what I am going to do before I stick all of that down, is I'm just going to grab a Distress ink. I think I want Peacock feathers. Hopefully that will be relatively to hand. Of course it's not. Oh, there it is. And I'm just going to, I shouldn't really do that. I've had that in oxides and now I've just stuck it into, the distressing. Not overly ideal, but hey ho. So I'm just going to do this, and it's just going to frame everything, give it a darker edge, which will help to draw the eye in. I always like doing stuff like that because I just can't help myself. It's one of those things, I try not to do it, you know, when I'm speed crafting or making demos like I am, you know, and I've got 60 billion things to do. Yeah, I try not to, and I just can't help myself because it just doesn't look right unless it's got all its shadowing. So I'm gonna bring that all in. Like so. Right. Okay, so we've got that there. Now let me see. I think, yeah, let's keep it simple. I'm going to go off and get some cardboard. Okay, I'm going to have a little bit of lunch. So, and I've stuck a bit of cardboard on the back. So the reason I've done that is just obviously these ones here are piled a lot higher, so she would have sort of sunk back. So the fact I've done that, it means I can stick her down nice and easily, and she sticks fine to the project. So we'll pop that there, pop her there. Okay. I think I'm going to have some of these little flowers, but what I am going to do is I'm just going to snip into the petals, because seeing as we have so much dimension on this piece, I think it's nice to sort of keep that going, keep the dimension going, because it just works, rather than all of a sudden starting to have lots of flat embellishments and things. So by snipping into the petals, I can just bend them back now, and then we just get this, it just becomes a little bit more 3D. So I think I'm going to get 2 of those, and we'll do the same thing, and we'll just have those, or maybe I have 2 there and then 1 just behind her. As I said, I'm thinking that I might keep it quite simple. We may add some of the coloured buttons as well, I'm not sure. Who knows, we'll just see what direction it takes us in. Right, so we'll get that. Put that down. Let's put that on there, oops. And then what I'll do is I'll let all of this dry, and then we'll come in and do shadowing, bits and bobs like that. Whilst I've got a bit of flexibility, just pop our legs up there. Okay. And get those stuck down. Hey, what's going on with her? Why is she wibbly wobbling so much? There we go. Like so. And yeah, should we have one up there? What have we got left with then? Singing, I'm not quite sure what to do. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think I prefer it up there than down there. So we'll do that again. These ones here I might keep flat, because they'll work against the flat of the substrate there, and then it also means we've just got a little bit of contrast going on. So we will get those done like so. So pop that in there. And I might only need the one of these actually, because if we sort of stick it down, I'll stick that down there, and then I will chop, because I can. If there was a strange edit there, I'm sorry, my camera ran out of battery, so then I have to wait for it to charge, so it's now later in the evening. I hear my desk there. Right, so this is where we're up to. I still might add a couple of hearts up here and probably a sentiment, but I thought I'm going to get on and do a little bit of shadowing first. So I've got dark aquamarine and I've got green aquamarine in case we need it. So I am just thinking that I'll maybe do sort of down behind her and round these buttons. I don't know whether I'll do all the buttons yet. That remains to be seen. I'll see how I feel once I've done this. And then I may add a little bit more. So I'm just going to add the shadowing, see how I feel, and then I will add, as I said, a few more details. So I'm going to get around all of this. Just scribbling a bit of colour down first, and then I will gradually draw it out. Right, okay, so we'll see how we go. And I just always find that doing a little bit of shadowing very often just lifts your project into another level, because it does help to give dimension to your work. Absolutely passionate about getting shadowing into things. So I'm using Inktense. If you watch my channel regularly, then thank you ever so much. If you watch it regularly, you'll know the reason that I like it is that it has the properties of a watercolour, so I've got a lot of control in how I am managing to pull out the colour, which I like. I have tried shadowing with like HP pencils and things, and I just find I struggle with the control of it. I quite often get it too dark too soon, whereas I find I'm able, because this moves like a watercolour, I can build it up a lot more gradually. What's awesome about it is it's ink, so that's why it's called Inktense pencil. So once it's dry, once an Inktense pencil has been made wet, so you don't want to get this on your clothes, because if you manage to splash it on your clothes and then it dries, it's then permanent. It's not going to wash out like a watercolour would. So it's great because you can use it on fabric painting. You can make yourself a bag and throw it in the wash. It's not going to do anything. It works great for that. But what's fabulous about it is the fact that if we were to reactivate it with water, we're not going to move it. So it allows us to build up the colour. So that's kind of what I meant there. That felt like it had quite a harsh line there, which I didn't really like, but because it's still wet, I have the ability to sort of manoeuvre it a little while, so that I can get it just how I like it. So I'm going to build up some of these areas, get some shadow in there, and then we will see how we go on. So we will see how we go with this, but as I say, because it does take me a little while, I will probably do what I usually do, because I've explained why. The other thing as well is, like anything in life, you can see that, see how dark it is on my hand underneath the paintbrush, and that's because when there's something in front, there's always a shadow behind, and this is why shadowing works so well. It gives it depth, and it makes it pop, and it pushes your focal elements to the front. So there's lots of reasons why I love shadowing. I literally do it on everything, whether I'm making a mixed media piece, whether it's a journal piece, whether it's a card. Always have shadowing. And it's like, I'm very passionate about, I kind of quite often end up on my hobby horse. So if shadowing's not your thing and it feels like I'm always going on about it and it annoys you, I am sorry. It's one of the things I like a lot. So because I like it a lot, I do sort of mention it quite a lot and refer to it quite a lot. So I'm just going to gradually keep building that up I might actually pop some just around some of these elements here, just to give it again a bit more depth, just to see how I go. And but I'll pop you on fast forward while I do. Just dried it slightly. I've got my VersaFine Clair. This is my older one, so it's not quite as juicy. So the reason I've got them numbered, that's my first one, and I'm on to number 2 now, which is really, really juicy. But I don't particularly want that for this, because I'm just wanting to try and create a little bit, again, darkening that frame, just trying to get a bit of extra sort of detailing and shadowing around, just sort of grunging up the edges a little bit, but I don't want it too dark. This is more as a framework, and it's not this particular project because we've kind of not got a even line. I think it'll suit this better than like going in with my black pen, which is my normal first choice for framing something. So again, this is all just about drawing the eye in. I'm just going to particularly do it on those corners. So that, again, that's going to pull the eye in. So we've got that. I pulled out a couple of little hearts. So I thought we could put those there maybe. And I just want to pop a little sentiment, and then I think that's probably as done. I will maybe do some white splashes. So I'm just that's in there. Okay. Okay, sorry, I'm going to be quiet there. Right, so we will just turn those into dangles because it's me and I love my dangles. Okay, and then one of the stamp sets has the sentiment cute as a button, so I'm just going to get a scrap bit of card. Let me see which one. I've got a big pile here. It'll be the last one that I find, of course it will. Is it this one? Yeah, cute as a button. Because I'm thinking that will suit that project quite well. I'm looking now for my other ink pads. I've got the old one there. Where's the nice? Now I want the nice juicy one. I can't find it. There we go. So that's number 2. So when I'm stamping, I tend to go with this one, but it is handy to sort of hang on to your older ones because you get different effects with them, which can be quite nice. So I'm just going to stamp that onto there. Just give that time to transfer. That's looking good. I seem to have lost all my scissors, seriously. I mean, I've got some here, but I don't particularly like them. Right, hang on, here we go. So I'm just going to grab this. I'm not overly worried about having it straight. I'll just get that cut into it first and then it'll be easier to... Okay. So I'm gonna keep it like that. I was trying to decide whether to go for an angle or not. I can't find my blending mat, so we'll just use this here, and I've still got a bit of that blue that we started off with. I think it was the China one. Just going to chop down because I've managed to get a black mark on there. So we'll chop that. This is because it's a nice juicy ink pad. It's obviously on my thumb because I've now just put a black mark out. Hang on, I'll stamp that again and I'll be back. Okay, so I have got that now stamped up and I've inked around it with a broken china oxide, which is what we put around the girl to help her blend in. and I'm just going to pop it along just here. I think this could be really cute in a craft room or somebody, especially someone that sews. So I'm just going to do a little doodle border around the sentiment because I can't help myself, and then I'm going to do my little faux stitching so it looks like it's part of the project. Again, I can't help myself, and while I'm at it, I wasn't going to, but I'm looking at it now. I've started doodling. It's like I've started and I can't stop. I'm just going to pop it around the edge of the frame there as well. Okay, so we've got that. Right, I'm just going to grab some scrap paper. I'm going to cover our girl and cover our sentiments. This is just copier paper that has been printed on, and I was using it to catch drips earlier. No, embossing powder. That was me prepping for another make. So I've got my Dina Weekly gloss spray, and I'm going to use this for doing the splatters. I want a really true opaque white, and because this is acrylic, it's going to stay nice and white for me, which is fab. I'm just going to get a load. It's kind of got a bit clumpy at the bottom of the thing there, which I don't want, so I'm just spraying that off. So I'm going to get all of that on there. And again, now that we've got the black, we've edged it with black, we've got a bit of black in there, and then put in some white, you'll really find all the colours will look a lot brighter because we've got our ultimate shadow and then our ultimate highlight. So we'll take that away. Sometimes I find, let me see, sometimes I find that there's bits just missing. I think I'd just like to catch this button. Here we go. I've caught her dress a little bit, but at least it's not a big blob on her face, so that's fine. So what I'll do is I'll just clear my desk and then give you a closer look. Okay, so that's the project all finished there. Our little mixed media project. So I hope you have enjoyed it here. If you have enjoyed it here, please do consider liking and subscribing, and I will be back with some more crafty goodness very, very soon. Okay, take care then, and goodbye.